I'm Ellie from Yalla. I have been in tech for about 10 years. I'm an engineer. I'm passionate about helping teams trust the code that they ship and working with a lot of folks on how to make that a reality as we all navigate agentic engineering. So, one of the things I've been doing is loading open source repositories into Yalla, and then we do a deep dive on their architecture, their system design, and then once a week, I'll pull in all of the changes from upstream and we can kind of look at how their system is evolving over time. Today, we'll do one of the weekly updates from cal.com. So you might not know, but cal.com is actually open source. So I'll link to their site. They of course have, hosted versions and a lot of people sign up just as a normal software product, but you can pull down their code and actually self-host. So I'll link to this as well. This is their main repository. So I've pulled in all of the changes from the last week. I will note that a lot of times when I do these change reports, they flag as medium risk. This is just because I'm only pulling the changes in once per week. So it looks like this really big tranche of changes instead of this like iterative flow that's probably happening upstream. So this is not reflective of, how the cal.com team or the open source project are evolving. It's just kind of an artifact of the fact that I'm only pulling these changes in once per week. This tranche of changes looks like it adds a calendar sync improvement, handling bidirectional syncing more reliably, allows hosts to configure mandatory cancellation reasons for event types, and then introduces auto translation capabilities for workflow notifications using a translation service. That's pretty cool. I wonder if that means like literally translating across languages for any of your attendees. Okay, it looks like there's not any new elements being added to the system as a whole, like a new architecture element, but we have enhanced a few. So we enhanced the background jobs, the calendar integration, workflow automation, and booking module. We have a new capability, so translates email and SMS into the recipient's language using an external translation service. That's really cool. So I guess the sender can just type, this is my message, and whoever receives it will get it in their language. That's really cool. And then enhanced capabilities, cancellation reasons, configuration, translated, adding a new background job type. So some of these are a little bit more granular and technical. There's no rule violations. I don't usually configure rules for the projects, the like open source projects that I pull into Yalla, just because this is not blocking any of their workflows. I don't know what their workflows are, but if there were rules configured, we would see those here. Implicit architecture decisions. I always like to see these just because as your software changes over time, there are always trade-offs that you're making. So it's good to just be able to see those. And then as an engineer, you can kind of eyeball them and say, oh, actually, we're fine with that. No worries. Or, oh, I didn't think about that. Let's go back to the drawing board. So this one says async translation via tasker. So it improves API latency and there's eventual consistency. I guess the alternative would be doing this synchronously. I don't really know how their job architecture works in general. I feel like async makes a lot more sense if they're, firing off messages. Maybe some of you are working on this open source project and might know better. And then it provides just kind of an overall impact assessment. So it touches some core modules. The calendar sync changes are deep but covered by extensive testing. That's great. And then database schema changes are additive. The migration notes are usually just flagging if there are upstream or downstream considerations for the new code that's coming in. So this one is just noting database migrations. This all seems straightforward. I am really obsessed with this auto translation for the recipient. I think that's a really cool one. If anyone's using this, let me know. I think that's very cool. I know a lot of folks that use the cal.com like web service, but I don't know if I know of anyone who's self-hosting and using the open source. So if you are, I would love to hear from you. Anyway, I'll keep doing these once weekly and we'll just kind of see how the cal.com code base is evolving over time. There are some cool visualizations that we can look at too, just as we see the system evolution. If you guys have any other open source projects that you want loaded into Yalla and you want us to do sort of weekly system evolution walkthroughs of, let me know. I'm happy to load more in. Otherwise, if you are thinking about the space, agentic engineering, like how do we make these workflows really robust and make sure that the right changes are lifted to the right people, please feel free to reach out to me. We're working with a lot of cool folks who are thinking about the same problem. So we've got a good contingency going, but otherwise I will see you all next week.